Welcome back to our panel discussion, Managing Mobility to Deliver Anywhere, Anytime Government, sponsored by Mobile Iron here on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. Our guests today are Dave Harrity, Associate CIO for Enterprise Infrastructure and Operations at the GSA, Sean Frazier, Chief Technical Evangelist for the Public Sector at Mobile Iron. Hildy Ferriolo is Computer Scientist at NIST. Vincent Sritapan is Program Manager for Mobile Security R&D at Homeland Security's Science and Technology Directorate. And we have Jake Marcellus, Mobility Portfolio Manager at the Defense Information Systems Agency. And before the break, we were talking about the idea and the implications of the important idea that mobile devices are not plugged into the Ethernet that we're so used to controlling. And Dave, at GSA, there's a portfolio of programs and even bureaus that deal with wireless and plans and mobility. So how does all that get integrated into the management of mobility given this extra network or multiple networks as we discussed?
Great question, Tom. So mobile and wireless are very much hand in hand and work in partnership at GSA. So we have the ability through having secured wireless systems both for our guests separately than from our employees. So that allows us to, go in between meetings, even work in the hallway as long as we look up before we run into something, as you see often. So we have the ability to be just as fluent working while we're in the office, anywhere, literally anywhere within the building. And we also have a large hoteling presence in many of our buildings. So people work where they want to work, on site or at home or wherever else, and they're able to just seamlessly move in between each one. So it's very key to have wireless, blatantly Wi-Fi established to help our mobile devices. Jokingly, if you've seen the Maslow hierarchy of needs, there's people have edited it and created Wi-Fi and battery strength as kind of the other two requirements for a mobility for workforce. So,
sure.
We use it quite successfully to do editing documents, reviewing them very quickly, doing collaborative editing, and having that documentation management piece to be able to do more than just email and really get the business done to the next step of the next employee.
And I guess also, if you're talking about this constant work and movement as people actually are in their daily work lives, there's the question, I guess it's solved mostly, but it wasn't always, and that is the state has to hand off from network to network so you don't end up relogging on and starting over when you move through the different zones or the different Wi-Fi hotspots.
Yeah, so the commercial providers, I've literally edited a document on my mobile device and then sat down at my desk and see where my cursor is from my mobile device, and then I can just seamlessly go onto my laptop and edit that document from that point on my laptop and then switch back to mobile and vice versa. And if I wanted to, I could do it on a tablet and so on and so forth. So it's really great to just pick up where you left off, literally, but not with the same form factor.
So Sean, how do the state of the art in managing all of this take into account the multiple networks in that model of no plug?
So the beauty of it is it's all kind of built in, right? That's why we all do mobile. We're kind of beat over the head from a consumer perspective of ease of use, right? So it's forced the technology from the ground up, literally from the carrier chip all the way up through the operating system, through to the application, to the user, to be cognizant of what that is. So you don't have the problem where you go from site A to site B and I've got to relog into my VPN, and oh, by the way, that might need a smart card or it might need a password or all these different things. So mobile kind of takes all of that into account, and it forces all of us to take that into account too as we build things for users. So I think that's one of the interesting things that's kind of happening now and driving in the commercial side, is we're seeing a ton of commercial products being kind of enterprise enabled. Facebook is the latest example, right? So Facebook Workspace, which is now Facebook for Enterprise. So they're going to go compete with Microsoft and all these other guys, Slack and everybody who are building things for inside the organization, using technology that's been vetted at a much larger scale on the consumer side, and also takes that thing into account where I'll be able to very seamlessly and fluidly be wherever I need to be and communicate with anybody.
Yeah, that's all we need, I guess, is corporate Facebook. That would really be fun in federal agencies.
Or the security guy will say, oh, that's all I need.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things we've been implying here is the importance of the cloud in the whole mobility, in the SMAC model and the mobility model. Cloud is fundamental to this, and of course the government has been struggling, my word, but they have been adopting cloud probably at a somewhat slower pace than people hope, but nevertheless it is coming on. Hildy, does the mobility management guidance take into account the cloud part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. It is essential that the cloud infrastructure is there, because as Sean was saying, as you have all your data, your documents, your email in one place, and that then enables you to access from this device, that device, laptop. Without that infrastructure in place, it wouldn't be possible. So, and NIST is definitely, well, we very cloud aware, and we have specification out around the cloud.
On cloud too.
Well, yeah, well, there is also the Fedramp as well that specifies what to what level security a solution is validated, and that gives department and agency assurance and trust in using a cloud solution.
Yeah, we should talk about Fedramp for a moment, because the implication was it's all to save money, but it's really enables a lot more the cloud than simply reducing your data centers.
Yeah, so there's a great opportunity with Fedramp and the lightweight ATO process that's come about, and the accelerated authority to operate. There's a lot of vendors, obviously, that serve our marketplace, and we need their products and services, and so the Fedramp process allows that on-ramp, literally, to get into that market space and provide us, if it's conferencing and collaboration solutions, very software as a service. I think Fedramp originally was kind of infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. It's really moving into the software where the business value is immediate upon purchase and acquisition. And now you have opportunities to really do bake-offs between, if it's a project management collaboration tool, now you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or even much more vendors that are Fedramp approved, also used at various agencies, and then you can use that as as part of your cost estimates or your evaluation criteria. What worked, go back to other agencies and said what worked for you here, what didn't work for you, both inside of the cybersecurity space and outside from just a usability of the product line.
So we really now have built an infrastructure or an ecosystem we can live in for
right.
This whole cloud deal.
It's more than just, back in the day, apps.gov and other portals would show you this is available in the marketplace, but it was not necessarily Fedramp approved at that point. So now that's becoming more and more almost just another layer or part and parcel with being in the marketplace.
So as the only vendor guy at the table who has gone through the Fedramp process, I will tell you that it's an investment. So it's investment of time, energy, money, and all the things you have to do, but it's been an invaluable investment, and I'll tell you why. Not only does it allow us to gain trust, because there's an element of trust of having to go through the process, but even on the commercial side, we learned a ton by going through that process, that we took that and put that back into the system and said, okay, on a commercial cloud, these are things that we really should be doing anyway. This should be the baseline, even beyond Fedramp.
So I imagine going through that whole process maybe helped the company, because you probably learned things about yourself and real requirements in the real world that maybe you might not have as easily accessed. And Jake, of course, DISA has been on a parallel cloud journey to GSA and the rest of the civilian side for a number of years now, and that has really evolved a great deal. So my question was relative to, say, the mega centers that DISA, I guess there's still a few of them left, and as Hildy said, their mobility is enabled by cloud. What's the difference between cloud and your own data center with respect to supporting mobility and mobility management?
Generally, I'd say it comes down a lot of times to cost, right, and agility. So sometimes we want to look outside of what we already have and what we're already using, because we can spin up data, or and it's usually storage for us, right? So sometimes it is the software as a service or platform, but it's generally storage quicker than we can do it ourselves. With a Fedramp and DoD impact levels to put our own layer on top of it, approved vendor at the prescribed needed requirement level, right? So that's generally what it is. But yes, the mobility device, as Hildy said, we don't want to make it harder. We want a customer to have access to the data that they already use today. And being a service provider, right, I don't connect to one infrastructure for one agency, right? We sell to multiple agencies. So it's been a little bit of a challenge to understand, where should we offer a content store to our customer? So, and we're still working those.
I mean, in some ways, the ultimate customer, the warfighter, has always been a mobile thing. It wasn't too many years ago that they still had to drag trailers with mainframes and big generators out to the field just behind the lines to be able to power the information systems needed. But now you see mobile, as we understand it, developments and deployments all over the military. So I imagine the cloud aspect of DISA has been supporting that.
Yes.
Either directly or indirectly.
Yes. So last week I actually got the privilege of visiting a signal battalion of a ex-officer that served at DISA recently, and it was great to see them set up their tactical setup and basically access cloud services that DISA offers, right, in order to complete their mission. And I think me and some of my cohorts from the trip, we were amazed on how lightweight they have become because cloud-based services, right? And many of these were in the private data center cloud, right? But they were made available to them, and the service quality was actually pretty good because the networks were actually good. So, and what was very interesting is I was able to use one of my mobile devices and use some of the same data services that they were able to use with their tactical setups. So that kind of proved out the fact that if you have the data in the cloud, the any device, anywhere, it exists.
It works. So it's lightweight both at the unit level and also at the individual level in some ways, if you can get rid of weight that people carry.
Yes.
And that's true for all of us that go from point A to point B.
And multiple copies of the same data, right? So you don't need multiple copies of the same data. If you have assured access, right, to robust storage services, right, and applications.
Right, there's another aspect to this mobility management and this delivering government anywhere, anytime aspect, and that we've talked about the networks and we've talked about the cloud. It's also the operating systems, something that needs to be delivered to people and yet also managed to deliver this services anywhere. And so we're into an era of not only multiple networks, but we've got multiple operating systems because under whether it's BYOD or government provided, there's at least two choices. So everybody has possibly one or two mobile operating systems, and then you've got laptops and desktops, and there could be multiple versions of the OSs there. What is how does all that result in better, or how can you apply better mobility management to control that aspect of the whole picture?
The goal is to make it as seamless as possible. So the operating system underneath, really, that's a user preference for one reason or another, but at the end of the day, it's all about the applications and the data they need to access. So it's incumbent upon us, and by us I mean Mobile Iron and folks like us, to abstract that layer as much as possible. So when you want to do something on an Apple platform or an Android platform or a Windows platform, that from a usability perspective and an end user perspective, they look and kind of feel the same.
Yeah, throughout the federal government, we've had cloud first, shared first, mobile first. It's really, at the end of the day, it really is application first. What is really providing you the business value and the mission for you to accomplish your job? It's usually some type of tool set, either homegrown or commercially based. And at the end of the day, that's where you need to focus your resources, both to make it mobile-centric, which is really just user-centric at this point. It's not are you going to support mobile? It's just part of the DNA, I think, for most federal agencies now. And to do that well, you have to, secure the network, secure the transport, secure the data. An example of DoD and others, I think you may have places where you don't want the data to reside on a mobile device, but you at least want that window of pane to see the data that you're looking at while it's still stored thousands of miles away. We have that same requirement mission too. So being able to edit documents that are still remain inside the cloud, but you're seeing it on your mobile device. You don't necessarily have to have that file resident downloaded in your mobile device, taking up storage.
Right, so that means you have to really be careful about the architecture and where processes execute, which may not be directly on this operating system or that one, but on some virtual layer that also controls display and storage.
Just to be clear, when talking the cloud piece, right? I know there's Fedramp, and that's a great piece. And depending on how you use it, though, you might have that infrastructure as a service or platform that you are approved. But once you throw software on top of it, or even how you utilize it, so you might have a golden seal of approval. You know, the use of cloud and mobile, like I can spin up a mobile app or develop one in a cloud service, right? And have that be provided to me. The database itself, the API, those are all standard, right? Mm-hmm. However, what encryption you use, what you use to authenticate, how you control everything, that is different. And those things where things like NIAP come into place, the National Information Assurance Partnership. So that's the DoD side. But you're going to see different methods of using mobile and then using applications, and how that's going to come back to you from a security conscientious type of decision.
Yeah, I'd agree with Vincent. So, and Sean. So from a customer's perspective, we try to keep them out of the differences, right? But it's definitely from a program office and working with the vendors. There are times when we just accept the fact that, you know, the different OSs treat things differently, right? And we try to make, you know, get to both, you know, the lowest common denominator to just kind of get the results to work somewhat of the same, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and we have to have different, you know, policies or different ways you do things on one platform versus the other. I think we went to a conference about 6 months ago, one of my leads, and the feedback was, well, don't try to make them the same. Just accept that they're different, and where they're different, you know, basically
live with it.
Live with it, right?
All right, we're going to take a break on that note and return to some other points we want to make sure we cover today. Our guests today are Sean Fraser. He is the Chief Technical Evangelist for the public sector at Mobile Iron. Dave Harity is Associate CIO for Enterprise Infrastructure and Operations at the General Services Administration. Jake Marcellus, Mobility Portfolio Manager at the Defense Information Systems Agency. Vincent Stridapan is Program Manager for Mobile Security R&D at Homeland Security's Science and Technology Directorate. And Hildy Ferriolo, Computer Scientist at NIST. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. This discussion is Managing Mobility to Deliver Anywhere, Anytime Government, sponsored by Mobile Iron, here on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com.